there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and I'm back this week with a really fun project that I'm going to be showing you how to make today. And it is my quick and easy crochet beard. Now this beard is so much fun because it's made with the fur yarn, so it makes it really, really warm, but it also makes it really realistic looking. So it's so much fun, and my kids have been having a blast wearing their beards pretty much everywhere. So if you're wanting to follow along with today's tutorial, you're going to need one ball of Fable fur yarn from We Crochet in your preferred color. I've got two different colors here just so you can see the difference. I've got the Lapin here and the Ice Bar, which is the white, and you're going to need a worsted weight yarn in your color of preference that ideally matches the color of your fur or closely resembles it. So I've got this Bravo worsted weight yarn here in the color Asphalt Heather for that would go with the Lapin, and I would just use their white worsted weight line for the Ice Bar. I will note, however, that I'm not actually going to be crocheting today using the fur on the camera because you're not going to be able to see my stitches. So for you to follow along, I recommend that you have these materials, but you'll see what I'm doing because I'm going to be using a smooth yarn, and it's going to be the exact same pattern. It's just we're going to use smooth yarn so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and then I have some samples over off to the side here of the finished beard so I can show you at the end some finishing techniques, and you'll see what it's done like when it's all done. You're also going to need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle, and if you're working with the fur yarn, it's your first time trying it, I do recommend having a couple of stitch markers handy. They're going to help you keep track of the first and the last stitches of your rows. And again, if this is your first time ever working with fur yarn, make sure that you take a moment before starting this tutorial and check out my tips and tricks video for working with fur yarns, because that's going to help you kind of bypass all of the standard complaints that you hear about working with fur yarn and kind of help you hit the ground running. So make sure that you check that out before starting this tutorial. And for your crochet hook, you're going to need a 5.5 millimeter or I crochet hook. I'm using this Furls hook here. And if you're using the fur yarn, I do recommend having a wire brush, although it's totally optional. It just gives you a really nice finish that I'm going to show you at the end of this tutorial. So if you're ready to get started, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel for free weekly content. And if I'm going to clear this workspace off here, and we're going to get ready to get started making our quick and easy crochet beard. So before we get started, I forgot to mention that we do have this pattern available on my blog, theloopylamb.com, in 3 different sizes. We have a small child size, a regular child size, as well as an adult size. Today's tutorial is going to walk you through how to do the child size, so the regular child size. And if you're looking for the other 2 sizes, the small child or the adult, you can find the patterns available for free on my blog, theloopylamb.com, and I'll link to that in the description box below. So to get started in making our beard, we're going to need a slip knot to place onto our hook. So I'm going to grab the tail end of my yarn and wrap it around my fingers like so. I'm going to cross it over the first strand, turn my fingers around, and then I'm going to grab my crochet hook and I'm going to go under the first strand and pick up that second strand. So going over the second strand, and then we're going to pull that all off the fingers and transfer it to our crochet hook. Then I'm going to tighten it up to the hook, make sure I have some fluidity of movement there, and now I'm ready to start crocheting. And again, I'm using this smooth yarn here today so that way you can see what we're doing, but to make your beard in the same manner as my samples, you're going to be needing to use the fur yarn. Okay, this is the Brava bulky weight yarn where I can get really close to the gauge given in the pattern with this yarn. The gauge for this pattern is 11 stitches by 9 rows equals 4 inches. So you would need to make sure that you're matching that gauge in order to make sure that your beard fits the person properly. If you're not matching gauge, you might have a beard that's either too small or too large for your intended recipient. So just make sure that you take the time to check your gauge. And so now I'm ready to start my child size crochet beard here. And to do that, I'm going to start with a chain of 28. And to do that, I'm going to wrap the yarn around my hook and I pull that through the loop on my hook. And that is my first chain. I'm going to yarn over and pull through the loop on my hook and that is my second chain. And I'm going to continue to do this until I have 28 chains. So now that I have my 28 chains, I am ready to start with row 1 of our beard. And now row 1 is the right side of our fabric, and we're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook. Now, when I'm counting or trying to find my second chain from the hook, we never count the yarn that's on your hook. We're always going to start in this first chain here. So we're going to count over 1 and 2, and then we're going to place our single crochet into that chain. To do that, we're going to insert our hook into that second chain, yarn over hook, and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook, and then you're going to yarn over again and pull through both loops on your hook. And that's your first single crochet. Now, again, if you're using the fur yarn, you should, or I recommend that you place a stitch marker in that first stitch. So that way, when you're working back the opposite way, you're not going to pick up or lose any stitches there. So now we're going to place 1 single crochet into each chain across. And so I'll show you how to do that single crochet again. We're going to insert our hook into this next chain, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook, and that is your second single crochet completed. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each chain across, I'll meet you back here at the end of the row to show you how we're going to move on to row 2. At the end of this row, you should have 27 single crochet stitches. So I just finished my last stitch of row 1, and I'm ready to move on to row 2. To do that, I'm going to yarn over hook and pull that yarn through the loop on my hook to chain 1. And now I'm ready to turn my work and start with row 2. For row 2, we're going to place 1 single crochet into each of the first 9 stitches. So into that first stitch here, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2. And that's your first single crochet completed. And we're going to do this until we have 9 single crochets. So I now have my 9 single crochets, and I'm ready to create the opening for our mouth. To do that, we're going to create a chain of 9. So we're going to yarn over and pull through the first loop, yarn over and pull through again. We're going to continue this until we have 9 chains. So now that I have my chain 9, I need to skip 9 stitches in this row here. So starting in the first unworked stitch, we're going to count over 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now we're going to single crochet into that 10th stitch. Making sure that you're not going to twist your chain while you're doing this, you're going to work into that 10th stitch, 1 single crochet. Right? And this is what we should have right now. And you can see that we have a little bit of an opening here, and that's where the mouth opening will be. And now we're going to place 1 single crochet into each of the remaining 8 stitches. At the end of this row, you should have 18 single crochets and that chain 9 space that we used to create the mouth opening. So now I'm at the end of row 2 and I'm ready to move on to row 3. To do that, I'm going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn my work. For this row, we're going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch and chain across. So we've got these 9 single crochets we're going to work into. So the 1 single crochet into each of these first 9 stitches. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of these chains. Now the chains, if you're working with the fur yarn, can be a little tricky to see. That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do your best and make sure that you are working 9 single crochets across. If you have any extra, it's going to kind of make this part of the beard hang off, and you want to be as snug fitting as possible to the face. So we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of these chains. So now that I've worked my single crochets into each of the 9 chains we have, I'm going to work 1 single crochet into each of these remaining stitches. At the end of this row, you should have 27 single crochets. And so now that I'm at the end of row 3, I'm ready to move on to row 4. For rows 4, 5, and 6, they are all done in the same way. You're going to start your row with a chain of 1 and turn your work. And then you're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So again, that's rows 4, 5, and 6. We're just working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So if you'd like to pause your video and do those 3 rows of 1 single crochet into each stitch across, I'll meet you back here at the end of row 6, and I'll show you how to finish off and then moving on to the next step. So I just finished my last stitch of row 6 and I'm ready to finish off. So I'm going to cut my yarn and I'm going to leave a tail of at least 4 to 6 inches for me to weave in. And then I'm going to pull the yarn tail through the loop on my hook and I'm going to weave in my ends. So now that I have my beard, the main part of my beard completed, I need to attach my ear straps. And this is one of my favorite parts about the beard is that because it has the ear straps, it's completely adjustable. You can adjust it to whomever needs any sort of adjusting for their size of their face or just for their comfort level. And it doesn't have any sort of, it doesn't need to be hooked up to a hat. It can be worn on its own. So now that I'm going to grab my worsted weight yarn here, and this is what I'm going to use to create my ear loops. I wouldn't, if this was a beard that I was planning on wearing, I wouldn't necessarily use this color because it's not that close, but it shows up on the camera nicely for us. So we're going to be using this freesia color of Bravo worsted. So because the beard is made with fur, it's not really, there's not really a one side that's usually overly better than the other. I personally find that when I'm crocheting with the fur, the wrong side looks furrier for me. And that's the side that I'm going to want to showcase the most. So I'll put that wrong side out. But if the right side is fluffier for you, doesn't matter, use that side. Okay, so this next step doesn't matter which side of the fabric you're necessarily looking at, just as long as you can identify where your corners are. So we're going to attach our yarn into one of the corners. It doesn't matter which one. You're going to attach in the opposite corner in a moment. So just identify the corner you want to work in first, create a slip knot, and we're going to insert our hook into the first corner. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. So I've got my slip knot ready here, and I'm going to insert my hook into this corner of the fabric. Then I'm going to place my slip knot onto my hook, tighten it up to the hook, and then I'm going to pull that slip knot through the fabric. Then I'm going to yarn over my hook and attach that yarn with a slip knot, a slip stitch. Gosh, got slip knot on the brain. So we've attached our yarn with a slip stitch here, and now we're ready to create our ear loop. For our ear loops, for my kids, I chain 12 works perfectly, but you can adjust this to add more if you need your ear loops to be looser or larger, or if you need tighter straps, you can omit some of these chains. So I'm going to chain 12. So yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through again, that's 2, and I'm going to keep doing this till I have 12. So now I have my chain of 12. I'm going to take care not to twist the chain because I don't want it to be twisted on the person's ear. I'm going to keep that chain straight. I like to put my finger in the center of the chain and fold it in half. And then I'm going to insert my hook into the opposite corner here on the short side. Okay, so we're working on only the short ends here. And then I'm going to slip stitch into that corner. My yarn is a little splitting there on the corner, so I'm going to do that again. So again, I like to fold that in half, put my finger in the middle, so that way it prevents it from twisting on me. Insert my hook into the opposite corner on the short end of the fabric, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to pull that loop through the loop on my hook. And that's my ear strap. Then I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a couple of inches, 4 to 6 inches is my preferred length for weaving your ends in. And then I'm just going to pull that through. You can chain up 1 if you feel like that's going to make it more secure, but I have had no issues with just pulling that yarn tail all the way through and pulling it tight. Then I'm going to weave in my ends into my fabric. And the fur does a really good job of hiding these ends. So it's going to be a pretty quick job of it. And then you're going to repeat the instructions we just did for this ear strap or ear loop and do it on the other side here. So I'll do that other one because it's so quick. So I'm going to make my second ear loop here. I've got my slip knot ready to go on my yarn, and I'm going to insert my hook into one of the corners on the short side of the fabric. I'm putting the slip knot onto my hook and pulling that through the fabric. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the loop on my hook. And I've now attached my yarn with a slip stitch. And now I'm going to do another chain of 12. So yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and repeat until you have 12. And now that I have that done, I'm going to attach my yarn to the opposite side here in the corner, inserting my hook, yarning over, pulling up a loop, and then pulling that loop through the loop that's already on my hook. And now I'm ready to fasten off and weave in my ends. Now, if you're making this with the fur, especially for the child sizes, you might notice that the mouth opening, if you're looking at the written pattern, the mouth opening for the child sizes is slightly larger than that for the adult size. And that's because when I was testing these with my own kids, they felt like the fur was kind of hanging into their mouth. So I left a little bit more of an opening there, so that way the fur wasn't sitting directly close to their lips, which can be not only a distraction, but they could be licking it and, getting some of the fibers in their mouth. So with adults, there's less of a concern about that. So they've got a smaller mouth opening. But you can see here, we've got our fur beards. And let me adjust my camera so you can see more of what's happening. All right, so I have my 3 of my beards here that I've made in the last couple of days. And when I'm done with the fur, and these look okay, but they could look better. And to make them look better is I grab this is just a wire dog hairbrush that I actually have for grooming my dachshund. And it works great for fluffing up the fur, making it look more lush. And if you have lines, it might be hard to see because this is the white beard I made. There are some very slightly visible lines where you can see where I've worked in rows, right there. Just like if you're looking at here, you can see that there is an indent here creating that line. The fur does have that as well, but you can eliminate that by using this, like a wire brush like this, and just brushing it. I like to use little strokes like this back and forth, and it will fluff that up significantly and will minimize the look of those lines. Now you have to have some patience. Sometimes it could take a little longer depending on how tight you were crocheting, but I'll show you this in just a moment so you can compare the two sides. I'm using the white just because it has the lines where the brown ones don't. So you can hopefully already see the difference. This side's not looking as lush as this side. There are a little bit more obvious lines, at least to me, because, I can see them better in person. But the more you brush them, the fluffier they get, the more realistic they look. Now, if the children or recipient might be bothered by a little bit of the fur hanging into the mouth opening there, you can use your scissors and just very gently give it a little trim in the middle there until it's no longer a bother and it's not overhanging the lips. That's what was the biggest issue for my daughter, was that the tips of the fur overhung her lips and they were kind of tickling her, she said. So if you trim that up, it should be less of a hassle. But these are just so much fun. And I hope that you and whoever you plan to give this to have so much fun sporting your new crochet beards. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. If you'd like to check out the other 2 sizes available in this pattern, you can find those as well as over 100 free crochet patterns over at my blog, theloopylamb.com. So thank you so much for watching. Happy hooking, and I will see you again soon.